Entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, here at Holbrook Animal Rescue, they're being forced to relocate, and if they can't find a suitable alternative, they'll even be at risk of closing. And I've seen the amazing work that they've done here. Just earlier we met a dog called Essie who has just found her almost possible forever home literally in the time that we were here. She only came here a couple of days ago, so it's really great work that they do for all animals. Like this one here, this is Torn, he's just a puppy, and I'm also joined by Laura Santini, who runs the shelter. Tell us a bit about Torn here.
So this is just a little fellow that came in, no fault of his own. The people just couldn't cope with him. So he's lively, and he's a half shepherd, half Labrador. What kind of impact would the possible relocation or even closure have on dogs like this one and all the other animals you have here? Well, simply that we wouldn't be able to take them. So if the next one comes up like this and we've got nowhere to go, then we just can't take them, obviously. So what happens to them at that point, I don't know, because we don't just take beautiful pups like this. We take the old and the sick and the dogs that other people don't necessarily want to take. So I can't imagine what would happen to some of them. So I don't know. It's sad. It's just a sad situation. And you've had quite a lot of support from the community here in trying to relocate. What's been there for you in terms of support? They're absolutely incredible. They've sent 1,000 letters into the council to try and support us and help us and let everyone see the light that, you know, you do actually need animal sanctuaries around. You can't shut them all down. We're always getting phone calls saying how much people like what we do and hope we get our plan in appeal when it goes through and things like that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Wednesday, the 17th of December. I'm Nana Akua.
And I'm Tom Harwood. Now, a new crackdown on extremist protest chants. Police in London and Manchester say anyone using placards or language that targets and intimidates Jewish communities will face arrest. We're hearing from the Met Chief, Sir Mark Rowley, shortly.
A fresh channel crisis. Hundreds are attempting the crossing in dangerous conditions as pressure mounts on the government's plans to stop the boats.
And Britain is rejoining the EU's Erasmus scheme, meaning more than 100,000 Brits could soon study across Europe again and Europeans come to Britain. Is Labour quietly undoing Brexit?
Sir Keir Starmer takes a swipe at Sarah Pochin, the MP for Runcorn, saying she's dreaming of a white Christmas, infuriating Nigel Farage, Reform's leader.
Cross-party MPs join campaigners today to protest the NHS puberty blocker trial on children, demanding Health Secretary Wes Streeting halt a study with no lower age limit will be live at the protest.
And in other health news, resident doctors hit the picket line this morning for 5 days of strike action.
We'll hear from a mother who lay over her infant son as bullets flew on Bondi Beach, sharing her terrifying fight to keep him alive.
And we'll be speaking to more landlords today as the British Beer and Pub Association demands 30% business rates relief to save pubs, warning higher taxes could cost 15,000 jobs and force hundreds more pub closures. Well, good afternoon, Britain. There's some breaking news. In the last hour, the Metropolitan Police have announced a major crackdown on pro-Palestine protests across Greater London.
Yes, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, spoke to the press in the last hour. Let's take a listen to the announcement.
On the back of the horrific terrorist attack at Bondi Beach in Australia, and following on so quickly on the back of the attack in Manchester a few weeks ago, myself and Steve Watson, Chief Constable Greater Manchester, spoke straight away, reflecting on how the context was changing and how we wanted to change our response. And this statement is made in that context. It was horrific to see in Australia Jews deliberately targeted whilst enjoying their Hanukkah celebrations. And first of all, I must say that our thoughts are with those who lost their lives and their families and the injured. Coming so soon after the Heaton Park synagogue attack in Manchester and amid rising global anti-Semitism, this is deeply alarming. Jewish communities across London, Greater Manchester and the rest of the UK are already worried and scared, and we realise this only adds to that. Anti-Semitic hate crime has surged, protests have intensified, and online abuse has grown since 2023. These trends create real fear and disrupt daily life and have an impact on how safe the Jewish community feel when attending synagogues and other communal spaces. Jewish children attend schools behind fences, guarded by security and routine police patrols. No community should be living like this. That must change. The two recent terror attacks targeting Jews, the increased fear in Jewish communities and the high numbers of terrorist attacks disrupted in recent years requires an enhanced response. Current laws are inadequate, and we welcome the fact the Home Secretary has asked Lord Ken MacDonald KC to review the current public order and hate crime legislation. The words and chants used, especially in protests, matter, and they have real-world consequences. We have consistently been advised by CPS that many of the phrases causing concern to Jewish communities don't meet prosecution thresholds. However, now, in the escalating threat context, we will recalibrate our operational actions to be more assertive. We know communities are concerned about placards and chants such as Globalise the Intifada, and those using it at future protests or in a targeted way should expect the Met or Greater Manchester Police to take immediate action. Violence acts have taken place. The context has changed. Words have meanings. Words have consequences. We will act decisively. We will make arrests. Frontline officers will be briefed on this enhanced approach. We'll also use powers under the Public Order Act, including conditions around London synagogues during services, to put further restrictions on protests. Visible patrols and protective security measures around synagogues, schools and community venues have been stepped up in London, in Manchester and elsewhere in the country. We're intensifying investigations into hate crime, and counter-terrorism policing continues to operate 24/7 to identify and disrupt terrorist threats. These measures are practical and immediate, and they're designed to keep our communities safe, deter intimidation and enforce the law. Our intent is clear: create a hostile environment for offenders and a safer environment for Jewish communities, whilst at the same time protecting lawful protest. All members of society are responsible to consider their own impact on others. It is perfectly possible to protest in support of Palestinian people without intimidating Jewish communities or breaking the law. We want you to hear this clearly. We see you, we hear you, and we stand with you. Your safety and well-being matter to all of us. Please keep talking to us and to each other. Report incidents promptly and make use of your dedicated neighbourhood teams. Hanukkah reminds us that light endures, even in the darkest times, and we will continue to work day and night to keep you safe.
Well, about time, really, isn't it? I mean, I don't understand. I thought that was illegal to make chants of that nature that were offensive anyway.
Well, let's get more on this developing story. In the studio is our GBNews reporter, Will Godley. Will, this seems like a big shift from both Manchester Police and the Metropolitan Police here in London, but is it all too late?
Well, that is the question that needs to be answered, doesn't it, Tom, Nana? Because Mark Rowley responding after the Bondi Beach attack, but also Greater Manchester Police, who, of course, dealt earlier this year with the synagogue attack there in Manchester at Heaton Park, a terror attack there. Both police forces very aware of the need to protect their Jewish communities. And particularly interesting hearing Sir Mark Rowley there talk about the fact that they're welcoming the current review into hate crime legislation, suggesting that the Met Police would have wanted to go further in previous Palestinian protests, making further arrests, but were unable to do so under the advice of the CPS that they were given at the time. Now, though, they are going to go further. They are going to make further arrests. He said there, be more decisive. 2 people protesting. No word about when that would start. He said frontline officers will be briefed imminently, he seemed to suggest, but walking from New Scotland Yard to the studios here in Westminster in just the last half an hour, there was a pro-Palestinian protest taking place outside the Houses of Parliament. Seemingly no additional police presence there or no crackdown yet. Mark Rowley, though, after this statement, I asked him a couple of questions. He didn't suggest that this was a crackdown on pro-Palestinian protests, just on the language that is felt by many Jewish people as anti-Semitic, as hateful, and leading to this environment that many Jewish people have told us over the past few years and months that make them feel unsafe to be here in the UK and in London. And that is something that Mark Rowley there wanted to get across, that the Metropolitan Police wanting to make them feel safe at a time when many Jewish people have told me out and about and told all of us on GB News that they feel often this is just words, not action, and that not enough is being done to keep them safe. Calling what's happening in London with the pro-Palestinian protests being allowed to take place two-tier policing when it comes to how they're feeling. So it'll be interesting to see whether this does result in action happening, whether police do crack down on pro-Palestinian protests, or, as some fear in the Jewish community, this is yet just more words and very little action.
Well, look, they proscribed Palestine Action as a terror organisation, and that didn't go down that well at all. They didn't really they weren't that heavy-handed on people who were supporting the cause. So, do you genuinely feel that perhaps this one will work?
Well, Mark Rowley was asked, after giving that statement, where the line is, what is going to be acceptable and what isn't going to be acceptable in the eyes of the police. There is, of course, no change in the law. It's just how the police are enforcing that law at this stage and what that might look like. He didn't really give an answer on that, and later on in the programme we'll bring you some of his answers that he gave, but he was not drawn in on what would be arrestable and what wouldn't be arrestable. He said there in that statement something that they would be cracking down on is globalising their intifada, and also placards used. So we could see people out on Palestine marches being arrested for what they're holding on their placards and also what they're chanting, but he didn't give specific information in terms of what chance would result in an arrest and what wouldn't.
That's the problem, isn't it? Where do you draw the line? And the interpretation, again, which is what they felt on it initially. What I would have liked to see on top of that would be a fine. Because I think if it hits people in the wallet, then they might have a think about it.
I wonder, though, if there will be the same number of arrests and how this will all be done. There'll be lots of people watching protests that take place in the coming weeks. It'll be fascinating to see how this plays out. But Will Godley, thanks indeed for bringing us all of that. And, of course, we'll get your interview with the Met Police Chief a little bit later in the programme too.
All right, you're watching and listening to Good Afternoon Britain. It is 10 minutes after 1 o'clock. Border Force vessels and lifeboats have been responding to a fresh surge in Channel migrants today.
Yes, GB News can exclusively reveal that at least 500 have made the illegal crossing, taking advantage of a tiny weather window.
Well, Mark White joins us from Dover. Mark White, give us an update. What more can you tell us?
Well, Tom and Nana, your timing is always perfect. Joining us here at Dover Harbour just at the time when another Border Force vessel, the Typhoon, has just come into harbour. It's sort of docked, well, not quite docked, it's just hanging about in the western jet foil. You can probably just see it behind that sort of crane that's there. That's the last of the Border Force vessels for today that has picked up migrants in the Channel, because quite honestly that very short weather weather window of just some 12 hours has closed in again, and it's really starting to blow. We're feeling it here on the cliff tops overlooking Dover Harbour. Currently in the Western Jetfoil at the moment is the Border Force vessel Defender. You can probably see that now. That is actually moving out of its position at the quayside there, so that'll move out of Western Jetfoil and allow that other Border Force vessel Typhoon to come round and in and to offload those migrants that they picked up in the middle of the channel. We can tell you on GB News today that so far the count, according to our producer Chris, who's been counting the migrants off all of the various boats today, is at 423. That does not include this last boat in, which I think is going to take us to nearly 500 for today. And within that 12-hour weather window, we also got a migrant boat that came across last night with 74 on board. So we're well over 500, pushing 600 actually in that 12-hour window. And it just goes to show you, whatever we've been told by some politicians, that the government's policy to defeat the criminal gangs was making a difference, it's obvious. It's the weather, because anytime we get a break in the weather, they come across. Now the weather's closing in again, they've stopped.
White, thank you very much. That's Mark White, a Home and Security Editor, live in Dover. I'm sort of warming to that idea of, who was it that came up with the idea of a wind machine, a wave machine? I think Sir Oliver Everman.
Well, no, it was that was reported by the tabloid press while Priti Patel was Home Secretary. Politicians always denied that was ever a plan.
Is it?
It was an idea that was allegedly floated in a discussion that then was leaked. I'm not sure how viable or how far through the process of getting to that idea actually ever was discussed.
Interesting stuff.
Now, in other news, the UK is set to rejoin the European Union's Erasmus student exchange programme.
Yeah, from 2027, British students will once again be able to spend a year studying in Europe without extra fees. I don't know what that's.
Fees.
Fees. Oh, it's fees with a D on the end, sorry. Fees, not feed. And the European students will be able to do the same here.
Well, it comes 6 years after the UK pulled out of the Erasmus scheme as part of Brexit, but replaced it with a different replacement, the Turing programme, which actually in the years since leaving the European Union has allowed for more British exchanges overseas. Unclear what's going to happen to that programme.
Well, joining us now is GB News' political editor, Christopher Hope. Christopher, good to speak to you. A lot of people will see this as a Brexit betrayal and a sort of another little step towards reversing it.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe there's some words to that, Nana and Tom. I should say that I've relocated out from Westminster Hall because it's the parliamentary carol service taking place, and they wouldn't want me talking about Brexit during that. It might ruin the vibe slightly, but that's right. It's the Erasmus scheme. It existed since 1987, a programme to allow UK students to swap places with European students. It ended, though, for the UK back in 2021, the 1st of January, when we left as part of the leaving of the European Union formally. It was replaced with something called the Turing scheme, as Tom says, and now that's going to end, and will, I think end, though Tom, not entirely clear where that scheme goes, but what we are going to be taking part in is the Erasmus scheme again from 2027-2028. They expect 100,000 students, UK students, to be able to swap places with European Union students and experience up to 2 months or a year overseas studying. Nick Thomas-Symonds, he is the Cabinet Office Minister in charge of the Brexit reset, as the government describes it. He says it's a huge win for our young people, breaking down barriers and widening horizons to ensure everyone from every background has the opportunity to study and train abroad. The UK gets a 30% discount on the cost of the scheme, which runs at £570 million, so more than £500 million cost. We get a discount for the first year to allow us back in. Critics would say who's benefiting here, because in the old days with the Erasmus scheme, the UK students taking part were outnumbered 2 to 1 by European Union students coming here. And indeed, as Nana suggests, is it part of a gradual winding back and us getting closer and closer and closer to the European Union? Now, of course, that means unwinding what Brexit is about. But of course, some would say that Brexit is simply about sovereignty and giving the right of all power to reside in the building behind me, where MPs and peers work. It's up to them to work out what to do with the powers they've got. The red line still exists, we're told by the government, no entry of the customs union single market or back to freedom of movement. But on that latter point, that could also be eroded next year if, as reported, we go towards allowing freedom of movement for 18 to 30-year-olds. That'll be a big issue for those watching Brexit closely. So lots of focusing on Brexit. But back in Prime Minister's questions, I've just come out of that session there, the last one before Christmas, full of Christmas cheer. The PM really focused 4 times with attacks on Nigel Farage's Reform UK party. He was up in the gallery, wasn't there watching it. The most stinging attack, I think, was on Sarah Pochin, the MP for Runcorn, Reform MP, of course. The PM suggested that she was clearly dreaming of a white Christmas. Now, that goes back to the idea of these too many black faces on adverts, according to Sarah Pochin, not representative of the whole country, she says, and that they're clearly going towards a claim there about what she thought. And also a joke from Sir Keir Starmer at the beginning of PM Quest PMQs, saying if mysterious friends from the East come bearing gifts, it's time to report them to the police. That, of course, is a jibe about Nathan Gill, the former leader of Reform UK in Wales for a small period. He was obviously convicted for promoting Russian interests and taking money for that, took 10.5 years in jail, so that's a big issue in Parliament.
Well, Christopher Hope, thanks indeed for joining us outside Parliament, but you still found a festive tree to stand in front
nice,
of.
Isn't it?
Nice little lights there.
Keir Starmer can talk about taking gifts. Do you know what I mean? Freebies, Freebiegate, Lord Allygate, come on.
Wow. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots still more to come.
Yes, we'll be speaking to a Bondi mother who became a human shield to save her baby as gunmen attacked.
But after the break, we're live in Westminster as protests grow over the NHS puberty blocker trial. All of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain. Weekdays from midday.
True Grinch fashion, one neighbour has written a bar humbug letter to a festive father-to-be, outraged by what he calls Dave Goodlin's cheap and tacky Christmas display outside his house.
I mean, there is no such thing as cheap and tacky Christmas today. Christmas is cheap and tacky. Dave accidentally, it happens, come on, brought a 20-foot inflatable Santa, believing it was just 4 foot tall, and inflated it outside his house.
Well, the neighbour's fury and Dave's giant Santa have now gone viral, and he's been left with little choice but to deflate the big man himself.
Or looking at that picture, went and brought a snowman that matched. Any case, we don't know. So joining us now is the man himself, Dave Goodings. Dave, you must be a bit deflated by this story.
Hello, good afternoon, guys. Yes, very deflated, because last weekend, the Sunday just gone, we decided to put up our Christmas decorations. You've got the tree behind me, and then outside the front, we've got 2 giant Christmas inflatables, one being a giant snowman and the other a Father Christmas.
So people have complained. Grinches have complained about this.
It's just the one complaint letter that we've had through the post. So we put them up on the Sunday, on the weekend just gone. And then I got home from work on Monday to an envelope that had been posted through the door. There's, no writing on the envelope, which I thought was a little bit weird. I opened it up and lo and behold, in the envelope was this long letter, all in capital letters. I couldn't believe it, what I was reading. And at first, my heart sunk because I'm not the kind of person at all. I hate upsetting anyone. I hate any confrontation, stuff like that. But for me, you know, I was reading it and I was like, oh, have I upset someone? But then after reading it a couple of times, you know, it's so silly. It's a time of year where you can let your hair down, have a little bit of fun at Christmas.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 22 minutes past 1. Now, large protests are taking place today over NHS puberty blocker trials as campaigners demand the programme be halted.
They argue that the drugs risk lifelong harm to children, whilst Health Secretary Wes Streeting maintains that the study is essential to gather proper evidence.
Well, let's speak now to our chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who is at the protest in Westminster. Catherine.
Yes, good afternoon. So we have here quite a large protest against this new puberty blockers trial. It's called Pathways. It's due to start in January of next year. Up to 200 children from age 10 upwards at a cost of £10.7 million to the NHS. Now, this is an incredibly controversial treatment. The Tavistock clinic that used to do this was closed down. There's all sorts of ethical concerns and concerns about what this physically and emotionally does to young children who are obviously many, many years below the normal age of consent for anything serious. Just worth saying, this group here, very peacefully protesting, were actually due to be outside the Department of Health opposite. Just going to ask my cameraman Emil to pan round. But in fact, we've got a counter-protest there. You'll notice that a lot of them have got their faces covered. They have been shouting, luckily not at the moment, but I can tell you I've heard the F word, the C word, and lots of other obscenities. So they are where this other more peaceful protest should have been. But I'm joined now, if you can turn back around, by former Conservative MP and, of course, GB News presenter Miriam Cates, who feels very strongly about this issue. Miriam, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. Why do you feel that this trial should not go ahead?
Well, I don't think there's any medical reason for it. We know exactly what puberty blockers do. They stop puberty. They were developed for a good reason, to treat children who go into puberty too early, to delay it until a proper time. We know that they work from a medical point of view, so we know exactly what's going to happen to these children. Puberty is going to be stopped. They're not going to develop the reproductive organs. They're not going to develop their brains in the same way that children normally do. So that's not in question. We don't need to test these drugs. So the question is, what exactly does success look like? What are we asking these children to do? To have no puberty and then go on to cross-sex hormones? What's that going to prove? And the point of the CAS review was actually that thousands of children were given these drugs without the right evidence, without anybody really knowing about it. And the first thing we should be doing is following them up, finding out what happened to them. We don't need to put another few hundred children through this frankly torturous regime. We can ask the people who have already been through it. Now, the CAS review was warmly received by gender-critical people, but unfortunately it did leave the door open for a trial like this. And what the protesters are calling on here today is Wes Streeting to stop this. This is not a medical question. Being born male, being born female is not a disease. We don't get to choose which sex we are. We do need to protect children who may choose a very different path later in life.
And we're due to hear from Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, shortly in Parliament. What is your message to him? Because he has said that he's very uncomfortable with this trial. Yes, it seems set to go ahead.
Well, my message to him would be, have courage. You know, it's never too late to have courage. The legacy that he leaves will be a lifelong one for these children. Only he can stop this now. He can say no. I mean, I think there are legal challenges underway that could stop this legally. But if he does have the courage of his convictions, if he is a thoughtful politician as he claims to be, then he needs to look at this morally and ethically. This is not a scientific question. This is a moral and ethical question.
And just finally, up to about 50% later regret whether it's the puberty blockers or gender reassignment surgery because they turn out to have been perhaps gay or autistic. That's a real worry about vulnerable youngsters, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, you were just saying in your introduction all the things that we don't let children of this age do. You know, drink alcohol, smoke, have sex. There's so many things that they're not allowed to do because their brains are not mature enough to understand the long-term consequences of those actions. The idea that an 8, 9 or 10-year-old knows what it means to go down a lifelong path of sexual dysfunction, of infertility, of all the kind of physical and medical changes that those drugs will bring is just ridiculous. But this is an ideological battle between people who think that you should be able to choose your own gender and people who think that actually the sex you are at birth is nothing to do with choice, it's just what you are. You need to get on with it. Of course, we should support children who worry about their gender. We should look at the kind of ideas they're being fed through social media. But the answer is not to medicalise them, not to pretend that you can change sex. That is absolute rubbish from a scientific point of view, and it is frankly harmful. This is child abuse, and that's what the people are here to protest about now. And it's a shame, I'm afraid, again, that the trans activists, yet again, are turning this into an angry mob instead of thinking about the children that are at the heart of this trial.
Miriam Cates, thank you very much. Indeed, another point to bear in mind, of course, is people suing for damages against the National Health Service because these changes are often irreversible and there will be very, very serious consequences down the line. But we'll be hearing more about this in the House of Commons shortly. I will be talking to some MPs here on GB News just a little bit later.
Catherine Forster, thanks very much indeed for being there for us.
Very eloquent of Miriam there as well. So true as well. They've already put young people on puberty blockers many years ago. They should find out what the result was of those young people before they start giving another load of young people, some as young as 8, a chance to go through the same thing. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I suppose for a trial you need to track people at lots of different periods, so a big gap in that data might be a difficulty to just do that. And it was Hilary Cass and the Cass report that said we should pause this all, but we should do a trial to find out what's happening, which is what the government say they're following.
It was in the review, but I would still suggest that perhaps they should really follow up on the people who took the puberty blockers. I'm with Miriam on that. I think it's very dangerous to give 8-year-olds a chance to take drugs because they think that they're another gender or that they feel a different way. At 8, who knows anything?
Well, we should say that on this trial, a Department of Health and Social Care spokesperson has said young people with gender incongruence need access to high-quality, safe and effective care. We're following the Cass review, which was clear that the evidence on care for these children is lacking, and proposed this research to help provide it.
Medical care must always be based on solid evidence, and children's safety must come first.
Well, that's what the Department of Health says. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. There's plenty more to come on today's programme. But first, your very latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon. The top stories this lunchtime. Patients are being warned to expect major disruption as resident doctors in England begin a 5-day strike. The walkout sparked a heated clash at Prime Minister's questions today. Kemi Badenoch accused Sir Keir Starmer of another broken promise.
Of course he's not going to ban doctor strikes. He doesn't have the baubles.
Well, the Prime Minister hit back, blaming the Conservatives for leaving the NHS on its knees.
They left the NHS absolutely on its knees, waiting lists through the roof and confidence absolutely rock bottom.
Also this lunchtime, police say protesters chanting "Globalise the Intifada" will now face arrest following the terror attack at a Jewish gathering in Sydney. The Met Police and Greater Manchester Force say the context has changed, but insist lawful protest is still protected. Sir Keir Starmer has warned Roman Abramovich that the clock is ticking to release billions from the sale of Chelsea Football Club to support Ukraine. The government says the money remains frozen despite the Russians' pledge. Ministers are now prepared to take him to court if it's not handed over. UK inflation has fallen more than expected, easing pressure on households. The ONS says inflation dropped to 3.2% in November, driven mainly by lower food prices and Black Friday clothing discounts, though it is still above the 2% target. And the UK is set to rejoin the Erasmus scheme 5 years after leaving the EU programme. UK students will be able to study and train in Europe again from 2027, with ministers expected to confirm that move today. Those are the lunchtime headlines. I'll be back with you at 2.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Well, thanks very much to Sam for that. Lots more still to come.
Yes, we'll be speaking to the Bondi mother who became a human shield to save her baby as gunmen attacked.
Well, all of that. And Britain's News Channel.
Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A dull, damp day for many. Some heavy bursts of rain again in the west. We have a Met Office yellow warning in place for parts of South Wales and southwest England. It's actually up to the northwest where the culprit for today's rain is. Deep area of low pressure, lots of isobars across the UK, and these weather fronts gradually pushing in. The heaviest pulses of rain, South Wales and southwest England, where it has been very wet recently, so this extra rain may cause further travel disruption. Pulses of rain working back into the east of Northern Ireland and up into southern Scotland. There will be some brightness across northern Scotland. The rain fairly patchy over eastern England, so many here having a dry afternoon. Temperature-wise, still a bit above average, mostly 9 to 11 degrees. But it will be quite a wet evening, particularly across the south and the west, but the rain extending up through the central belt of Scotland during the evening time as well. Parts of northeast Scotland still dry at this stage. Some showers coming into the northwest. Belfast should be turning drier as we go through the late afternoon into the evening. The rain pulling away from here, but lingering in Wales and southwest England. Again, heavier bursts here. The rain more patchy over the Midlands and eastern England. Parts of East Anglia and the southeast may well stay dry into the evening time, but slowly overnight that rain will be pushing its way further eastwards. Another Met Office yellow warning in place across other parts of southern England. So a lot of spray, a lot of surface water on the roads. Generally, though, becoming quite a bit drier as we go through the night. So most places will start Thursday dry with temperatures at 6 and 7 degrees Celsius. As we go through Thursday, well, there is another pulse of rain. Yes, it starts dry in many areas. There'll be some sunshine for parts of Scotland, but then further rain. Again, heavy rain coming in and again falling on ground that is very, very soggy. That is likely to cause further disruption. More Met Office warnings are in place. You can check out those Met Office weather warnings on the Met Office website and app.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 8 million followers across social media. Thank you for making us a part of your daily life.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Road users should exercise caution on the A9 Dornoch Bridge due to high winds. The A595 northbound is closed between the A596 and the A66 junction due to a collision. Normal traffic is expected between 6:15 and 6:30 this evening. In Middlesbrough, a broken down vehicle on the A174 westbound at the junction with A1032 has closed one lane. Normal traffic is expected shortly after 1:30 today. And on the trains, cross-country is experiencing disruptions. There are also issues between Nottingham and East Midlands Parkway. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 35 minutes past 1. And now it's 3 days since the deadly shooting at Bondi Beach in Australia.
A 23-year-old and 24-year-old man, alleged to be one of two gunmen responsible for the attack that killed 15 people, has now been charged.
Well, the attack has raised fresh questions, of course, about how rising anti-Semitic violence around the world can really take hold. It's shattered what had been a peaceful Hanukkah celebration, leaving families fearing for their lives.
Well, among the survivors is a young mother who shielded her 7-month-old baby with her own body as shots were fired.
Well, absolute privilege to be joined now from Sydney by Chavi. Thank you so much for being with us, Chavi. You have been through unimaginable torment, of course, over the last few days. Just, if you can, recall the moment that it all started. Where were you?
So I was chatting to my friend right by the petting zoo, and suddenly I hear what I thought was fireworks because I've never heard gunshots before in my life. And I look up to the sky, and it's a beautiful blue sky. And I'm thinking, that doesn't look like fireworks. And then I hear everyone screaming, down, down. And we, as the Jewish community, have our own local security group. And I remember seeing them motioning for all of us to get down. And thank God I happened to be holding my baby 10 minutes before he was in the pram, but then I got him a balloon, and so I was holding him. And then I just shoved him and myself onto the ground and put myself over my baby as a human shield, protecting him whilst we were sitting ducks and bullets were flying.
And Shavi, who was around you at the time?
So all of the people that were at the Hanukkah festival, which is a celebration of love and light, and lots of children. This was a festival for kids. So all of the children and their guardians, their parents were there, and different community members who just wanted to come together to celebrate the festival were all over. It was complete chaos. I was very focused on shielding and protecting my baby, and my baby is screaming his head off. His face is red. There's sweat dripping down him, and there's grass and mud going all over him. And I'm trying to shield him, but at the same time, I don't want to suffocate him. It's very, very hot. It's 29 degrees Celsius, so I don't want to suffocate him. And I'm trying to protect him. And also just thinking the whole time, what is going on? Is this even real? I was in complete shock and disbelief.
Now, of course, this is it has been an active police investigation. There is one person who's now being held in custody. Am I right in understanding you've only been given your possessions back today, days after the attack, and have been able to look back at some of the happy pictures that were taken moments before the attack?
Totally. I literally got my phone back at 8:30 p.m. tonight. Now it's 12:38 a.m. So I only got my belongings, my phone, my keys, my pram, only tonight. This photo that I sent was actually taken at 6:39 p.m. And I think Chris Minns, the premier, said that the shooting began at 6:47 p.m. So very, very close, under 10 minutes from this photo, smiling, my baby all happy, there's children in the background, and him with his balloon, to less than 10 minutes later on the ground, fearing for our lives.
And whilst you were lying there on the ground, presumably you were very close to where it was all happening.
Yeah.
Just talk me through what you were thinking, and where were the security? Because I know you said there's Jewish security, but what about the police? Where were they?
So what I was thinking was disbelief and shock. At the same time, as a believer, I was saying psalms. I was saying prayers to God, begging him to save me and my baby's life. And I'm also thinking, where is the police? What's taking so long? That was also going through my brain. And I also couldn't contact my husband or any of my loved ones because my phone was in my pram. So I didn't even have any form of communication. I heard people, calling their loved ones saying goodbye and I love you. And I'm thinking, I can't contact anyone. I don't know. I don't know where the police were. I know that there were 2 policemen, around at the fair with us. And I think that they had pistols, but I'm not really sure what happened because I honestly was just focused on protecting my baby, and that I had like a tunnel vision to protect my baby. So I was thinking whilst I was there, where is the police? What is taking so long? But I can't give you guys answers because I'm not really sure. And I do think that obviously the police and the local Jewish security group were not prepared for this attack at all. Even we had to have the civilians come in and save the day. And my friend's father, Reuven Morrison, who was murdered in cold blood, there's a video of him taking a brick and trying to throw it at the terrorists. And you know, people like him and that other Syrian man who came in, they were the ones who really saved the day. I don't know where they were. It's a good question.
Now, I mean, you talk about your friend's father who sadly was killed in this attack. I mean, it seems that around the world, Jewish communities are incredibly tightly knit. When we had our attack in Manchester in the synagogue just some months ago, I was astonished at how many people knew people who were seeking shelter in that synagogue, who were there connected to that event. You must know so many people personally who have lost their lives in the last few days.
Yeah, I do. I know the rabbi of that synagogue in Manchester. We know mutual people. My mom's actually from London, by the way. But I know most of the victims that were murdered. My friend's dad, my friend's brother-in-law. We actually, after the craziness, it went silent. And then people were screaming, "Is anyone here injured?" And me and my friend, there was a friend that was next to me, and I was with my baby. We just ran, and we saw my friend's sister-in-law who was holding. She had blood on her shirt, and she was holding her little 8-week-old baby, and had her little 7-year-old son who was still clinging onto his hot dog from the fair. And me and my friend took these 2 children to shelter, and we had no idea, and they had no idea, that their father was also murdered in cold blood. Their father was also a British citizen, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I know a lot of the people that were murdered, and it's very close to home. And unfortunately, I wasn't shocked about this attack. I never thought that obviously I would experience it. But for me, you know, this was an attack against the Jewish people, and I want to make that very, very clear. This was not an attack against Aussies. This was an attack against Jews, and this was at a Hanukkah festival celebration. On other media outlets, I watched an Aussie who said that he saw the gunman, and one of the gunmen signaled for him to turn away, and then he went back and he was shooting at us, like I said, like sitting ducks. And for us as the Jewish community, the writing was literally on the walls. Just a year ago, my brother, who is a rabbi, his home was vandalized with very negative slurs like "you Zio, baby killer," you know, all these other things. And for what? For being a Jew? Whatever is going on in the Middle East should not be impacting citizens across, Jewish people, in Australia, in England, the UK, the USA, across the world. And this was an attack against our community, and we feel very upset with our current government because we feel that they have not protected us, and that they have allowed this bad behavior, this radicalization and extremism to be on our streets. And I am all for all different types of religions, ethnicities, people. I want that I should be able to go to my Hanukkah celebration, and that my Christian friend should be able to go to her Christmas celebrations. My Buddhist friend, my Sikh friend, my Muslim friend, everyone should be able to practice their religion in peace. And when we allow this extremism on our streets, this is what's going to happen. The protests that were happening, and all in the name of freedom of speech, many of the times it crossed into hate speech. On the Harbour Bridge, we saw terrorist flags being flown. 2 days after October the 7th, the biggest atrocity, the biggest loss for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, we see people outside the Opera House, you know, whether it was "Gas the Jews" or "Where's the Jews," doesn't really matter. It doesn't really make Jewish people feel very safe. And, you know, burning the Israeli flag, for many of us Jews, that's our homeland. For me, the only reason why I know that another Holocaust won't happen is because as a Jew, I can seek refuge and go to my homeland Israel. And that's not to mean that I don't want that my homeland Israel can, I want that all people can live in Israel. It's not just the Jewish homeland, but it's definitely a part of my identity and who I am, and that I should, you know, be able to have. And it's just crazy to me that I even have to have this conversation of, am I safe in Australia? Are Jews safe in the diaspora? Do we need to go and run to Israel? It's just absurd, the whole thing. Yeah, it's unfathomable.
So sorry to hear what happened, and really glad that you are safe and that your son is safe and that you got through that. Let's hope that governments around the world are listening now and prepared to do something proper about it rather than just talk. Chavi, thank you so much for sharing your experience. It's really good.
Can I just, sorry, I want to add, I just want to add one more thing. Sorry, I just want to say that as the Jewish community, we are mourning, we are in disbelief, we are in shock, and there's a lot of sadness in our heart. But we are going to channel all of these negative emotions into only positive things. We are a people of peace. We are a people of love. We are a people of kindness. And we just want to add positivity and light into this world. This is what the Festival of Hanukkah is. Every night we add in light. We have 8 days of increasing in light. So for us, the Jewish response is to add more light into this world, to dispel the darkness, to increase in acts of goodness and kindness, and to make this world a better place.
Oh, beautiful words. Thank you very much, Chavi. That is Chavi.
Thank
sharing
you.
your story from Australia. Thank you.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come. Pubs warn they're on the brink with fears of closures and job losses. We'll speak to a landlord on the struggles
Can I hang up?
he faces. But first, the European weather.
Can I go? Cheers. Thank
Dinner
you.
under
Bye.
the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, are you heading away for some sunshine? Well, it's quite wet actually across parts of Spain, Italy and France, as well as the Canary Islands. We've got some very unsettled weather, a risk of showers for Tenerife through Thursday, and a risk of outbreaks of heavy rain and thunderstorms spread across Spain, Italy and France through Thursday. It does look a little bit drier to end the week, and across eastern areas of the Mediterranean, there's plenty of dry weather to come through Friday and into the weekend. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Jubilee, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. Pub landlords are warning of dire consequences for the industry, saying that Labour's planned business rates rise could force closures across the country.
Well, many say soaring costs means that they're cutting hours, raising prices, and fear thousands of jobs could now be at risk.
Do you know what? I think this was so predictable that they did not... business rates have gone up because they've gone back to the rates that they were at before COVID. They've got the Employment Rights Bill, which is coming through, which is quite frightening. Also, they have to pay VAT, duty and everything else. Let's speak to the landlord of the Bright Star in Peters Green, Guy Richardson. Guy, how is all of this going for you? I mean, this is dire, I see, for the industry.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Dire, it's quiet. That's a better way of putting it. It's not looking, the industry itself not looking great. I've got to be honest.
A lot of pubs have been pretty shocked that, despite what the Chancellor said in her budget speech, which is we're going to help pubs, we're going to help high streets, suddenly these business rates are shooting back up off the basis of new valuations.
Yeah, it seems all of the promises that were made to get feet under the table, I suppose, one of a better word for it, is they've just been gone right back on. And yeah, I suppose in a funny sort of way, they're giving you one hand, so by saying there'll still be a rates relief. However, by redressing the rates valuation, it looks like it's only going to go one way, and that's not going to go in our favour, that's for sure.
Do you think you're going to be able to cope with what's coming? No. And so, because sorry, go on.
So I'd like to dress it up any better than that. Christmas is normally a great time. I've 40 years in this trade. Christmas is normally a great time just to sort of to forage a few nuts for the chilly parts of next year. There's no foraging being done really on the whole. There's just not enough about and it's not a case of the rates coming straight in from January the 1st. We know they're coming in April. But there's no room to hide any other fat away.
Guy, you say you've been in this industry for decades, and yet this is the winter where you think you might not be able to cope. I mean, that is a stark assessment of where we are today.
It's a stark assessment. It's a very fair reflection, and it's a true assessment. I mean, I've spoken to dozens and dozens of landlords and all over the country, and by and large, it's not everybody, by the way. But by and large, it seems to be the norm for a lot of people in this industry and hospitality in general, and small businesses. But it's just very, very, very tough times. We've been through tough times. I went through the tough times of the 80s. But nothing like we've got now, because the outside pressures of hospitality in itself, with social media and this, that and the other, everything's compounded, and it's all seemed to sort of finally come at us at once.
What do you think the government could do, or what could make things better for you? What change would you like to see happen that could potentially make a difference?
I think just to give some assurances on the rates and rates alone would be a good thing. Because if it just takes that one pressure off people in hospitality and pubs and so on and so forth, if it can just take that one pressure, we can concentrate on other things. There's the amount of duty that we pay in this country is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So to address that in some which way, shape or form, the thing is, this issue is really coming to a head, and it's coming to a head quite quickly now. We are really getting up to the sharp end.
Guy, we've only got a couple of seconds left, but I want to get this question in. A lot of pubs around the country are banning Labour MPs from their premises. Are you going to be one of those pubs?
Already am. I had a meeting a long time ago. I say a long time ago, just after the last election, and I had a conversation with our MP. He gave me no indication that they would be any better than anybody else. So absolutely, I just don't want an MP in this pub.
Right, well, Guy Richardson, pub landlord at the Bright Star in Peters Green, thanks so much for joining us and committing some news there. No Labour MPs allowed in that pub.
Right, this is Good Afternoon Britain, lots more coming up. Do not go anywhere.
It's the greatest cash prize of the Great British Giveaway so far. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, making 2026 your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Wednesday, the 17th of December. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Nana Akua. A new crackdown on extremist protest chants. Police in London and Manchester say anyone using placards or language that targets or intimidates Jewish communities will now face arrest.
More than 550 migrants have crossed the Channel illegally in a short 12-hour weather window as pressure mounts on the government's plans to stop the boats.
Well, no sooner had that weather window opened than it's closed up again. The white caps visible in the middle of the channel there, just going to prove that it is the weather and not government policy that seems to be the deciding factor on how many cross the channel.
Resident doctors hit the picket line this morning for 5 days of strike action.
The UK is rejoining the EU's Erasmus scheme, meaning more than 100,000 Britons could soon study across Europe under this scheme. And, of course, Europeans could travel to Britain. Is Labour quietly undoing Brexit?
Cross-party MPs joined campaigners today to protest the NHS puberty blocker trial on children, demanding Health Secretary Wes Streeting halt a study with no lower age limit. We'll be there live.
And some good news. The government steps in with £120 million to save Britain's biggest chemical plant.
Yes, Chancellor Rachel Reeves arrived here in Grangemouth today for a £120 million investment as part of a £150 million deal to save 500 jobs at Scotland's last large oil refinery.
The interesting thing about the Erasmus scheme is that we already had a replacement for it.
Yes.
It was called the Turing scheme, and it was actually open to more countries than Europe, and it was focused on people particularly for disadvantaged backgrounds. Now, I'm not quite sure why the Erasmus scheme, or rejoining that, is any benefit to British students. I can see why it would be benefit to European students, though.
It's got a limit, though. So it's 100,000 students. So that's either way. It was always, we used to get double what we were sending out.
Well, I mean, if you think about
there's
it...
a limit this time.
If you think
last
about
time,
it,
was there a limit before?
The universities that this country has to offer are some of the best in the world. You look at the top 10 lists of global ranked universities. I mean, we have about half of them. Europe has none of them. The European Union doesn't have any of those top universities that are in the top 10 in the world. So, I mean, joining this deal and paying to join this deal, I mean, that's just helping the European students.
Yeah,
it doesn't really help the Brits.
Sneaky creep in, reversing Brexit, that's my view. But what are yours? gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you from the newsroom, just coming up to 4 minutes past 2. Well, patients are being warned to expect major disruption as resident doctors have begun a 5-day strike. The issue sparked a heated clash at Prime Minister's questions today, the final session of the year. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch accused Sir Keir Starmer of another broken promise. She claims Labour's given doctors a 28% pay rise only to face fresh walkouts during the worst flu crisis in years.
This morning, they've gone back on strike for the third time, in the middle of winter, in the middle of the worst flu crisis in years. Mr. Speaker, this shouldn't be allowed. We already banned strikes by the police and the army. Why doesn't he put patients first, show some backbone, and ban doctors' strikes?
Sir Keir Starmer, though, as expected, pushed back, calling the strikes dangerous and utterly irresponsible, and blamed the Conservatives for leaving the NHS, as he said, absolutely on its knees.
And my message to resident doctors is don't abandon patients, work with us to improve conditions and rebuild the NHS. But, Mr. Speaker, they left the NHS absolutely on its knees, waiting lists through the roof and confidence absolutely rock bottom. And, Mr. Speaker, I take no lecture for them on industrial harmony. More days were lost to strike action on their watch than any year since the 1980s.
Breaking in the last few minutes, figures from our reporters in Dover, more than 550 migrants have crossed the English Channel illegally during a brief 12-hour weather window. 491 people reached UK waters this morning, following 74 arrivals overnight, as Border Force and RNLI crews responded to 9 small boats. The surge comes after weeks of rough seas had halted crossings and after another spike at the weekend pushed the total number of arrivals so far this year to now 40,000. Police say protesters chanting "Globalise the Intifada," an Arabic word for uprising, will now face arrest as officers adopt a tougher approach following the terror attack at a Jewish gathering in Sydney. The Met Police and Greater Manchester Force say the context has changed and they're warning the phrase will now be treated more robustly under public order laws. It comes as security stepped up around synagogues, schools and community sites. Police are also vowing to act decisively against intimidation, but insist that lawful protest is still protected. That comes as the surviving suspect in Sunday's mass shooting at Bondi Beach has been charged with 59 offences, including 15 counts of murder and of a terrorist act. Naveed Akram appeared in court from his hospital bed after being critically injured during the attack. The shooting killed 15 people, including a 10-year-old girl at a Hanukkah celebration. Well, one of those who survived, Chavi, has just been speaking to us here on GB News, and she said she shielded her baby from gunfire and helped gather other children as that attack unfolded.
It was complete chaos. I was very focused on, shielding and protecting my baby, and my baby is screaming his head off. His face is red. There's sweat dripping down him, and there's grass and mud going all over him, and I'm trying to shield him, but at the same time, I don't want to suffocate him. It's very, very hot. It's 29 degrees Celsius, so I don't want to suffocate him, and I'm trying to protect him, and also just thinking the whole time, what is going on? Is this even real?
Back here at home, inflation has fallen more than expected, easing pressure on household budgets. The Office for National Statistics says CPI inflation dropped to 3.2% in November. That's down from 3.6% and marks the lowest level in 8 months. Lower food prices, Black Friday clothing discounts and easing alcohol and tobacco costs have driven the fall, though inflation remains above the Bank of England's 2% target. And Downing Street says the deal for the UK to rejoin the Erasmus scheme is a good deal, insisting Britain secured a 30% reduction in fees compared to default EU terms. The government says the UK will contribute around £570 million in 2027, but that most of that money is expected to flow back to UK students and institutions. Ministers say Erasmus will offer broader opportunities than the UK's replacement Turing scheme, as student leaders have hailed the move as a huge win. Those are the headlines. Let's take a look at the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
8 minutes past 2, the markets for you. The pound will buy you $1.3326 and €1.1374 euros. The price of gold is £3,239.79 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,833 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 2. Now, in the last hour, the Metropolitan Police and Greater Manchester Police have announced a major crackdown on pro-Palestine protests across Greater London and Greater Manchester.
Well, let's get more from our national reporter, Will Godley, who joins us in the studio. So, Will Godley, seemed pretty obvious to me. I thought it was already slightly illegal anyway to have placards that were insulting or offensive or causing harm. I thought they were hate laws. Why is this different? What's the difference to all of this?
Well, the Met Police saying today, along with Greater Manchester Police, that the current threshold that is in hate laws and other laws don't meet the prosecution threshold. So many of these phrases that you would have heard at pro-Palestinian protests, police simply wouldn't be able to charge and prosecute people for using these phrases or using these placards under current laws. Well, the government are reviewing the hate laws at the moment, but no change in the law. The police, though, today saying what has changed is the context facing Jewish people. And they're now in an escalating threat context facing the Jewish people. So the police are recalibrating their approach. And that is why they are stepping up this policing. But the worry amongst some people in the Jewish community is that, as we've had for many, many years, this is simply more words, no action, and very little will be done. And that's something Mark Rowley was answering earlier on.
We will do everything we can do to make Jewish communities safe. We've pushed the law to its limits over the last couple of years. Every contentious phrase, every contentious act, we push to CPS to seek advice and charge when they authorise it. What we're talking about today is going further. We're going to make more arrests on some of the contentious phrases, and we're going to encourage CPS to look harder at prosecuting those cases.
So, Mark Rowley there talking about what the police are doing in London and also in Greater Manchester to keep a Jewish community safe. But, Tom, Nana, what's interesting is how they're doing that. And it's particularly phrases and chants used at these protests, but also placards. So many of these phrases intimidating the Jewish communities, the police saying this afternoon. And that what they've said is that they are going to act decisively and will make arrests if anyone crosses these thresholds. They're briefing officers about what to do on the front line. But the interesting situation here is, where does the line drawn? What is acceptable and what isn't acceptable? Well, that's something Mark Rowley also addressed a little bit earlier on.
We will do everything we can do to make Jewish communities safe. We've pushed the law to its limits over the last couple of years. Every contentious phrase, every contentious act, we push to CPS to seek advice and charge when they authorise it. What we're talking about today is going further. We're going to make more arrests on some of the contentious phrases, and we're going to encourage CPS to look harder at prosecuting those cases.
So you're announcing this crackdown on Palestinian protests. Where's the line? What's acceptable? What's not acceptable? Who will you be arresting? And if Jewish people have told us repeatedly these protests don't make them feel safe, why not ban them entirely?
It's not right to call this a crackdown on Palestinian protests. It's perfectly possible to protest lawfully with concern about human rights issues in Palestine or concern about the actions of the Israeli government. What we're concerned about are phrases and actions which are creating an environment that's permissive for anti-Semitism. We're going to stamp down on some of those phrases, we're going to make more arrests, and we're going to put files to CPS. I'm not going to get into a long list of phrases that only encourages people to use them, but people can expect stronger action from the police in support of Jewish communities.
So Sir Mark Rowley there saying that protesters who use language that Jewish people may feel is anti-Semitic can expect tougher action from the police, not saying what language that would be at this stage, just that they should expect this action, but also saying this isn't a crackdown on their right to protest. Pro-Palestinian protests will still go ahead at this stage, just protesters who use language that the Met Police and Greater Manchester Police deem is unacceptable can now face action and further arrests.
OK, well, Will Godley, thank you indeed for bringing us that developing story there from the Metropolitan Police and indeed Greater Manchester Police too.
Right, well, Border Force vessels and lifeboats have been responding to a fresh surge in Channel migrants today.
Yes, GB News can exclusively reveal that at least 550 have made the illegal crossing, taking advantage of a tiny weather window.
Well, Mark White joins us live from Dover now. So, Mark, what more can you tell us?
Well, the wind's picking up, it's getting a bit chilly down here, and it's an awful lot worse in the middle of the channel, and that's why it's all about the weather, really, in terms of what stops these migrant boats coming across. Because if the wind picks up to any degree, it just churns up the sea out in the channel, and it's impassable for these flimsy dinghies to make headway, and that's what we've been seeing for much of the last month. 28 days without any crossings until the weekend that passed when the weather calmed down and more than 750 crossed. Again last night, a much smaller window this time, but even the fact that it was just over 12 hours of a weather window, we got 74 that came last night, and then overnight into the early hours and through the morning today, another 492. So 566, I make it, the number of boat migrants that came across just in that very short window. And that, I think, shows what the government is up against. You know, we've had all of the policy announcements now for a year and a half from Sir Keir Starmer, from smashing the gangs to bilateral deals with a number of different countries to the returns deal with France. Tougher policies announced by Shabana Mahmood on the fact that asylum seekers should not expect that they will get permanent leave to remain here. All of these incremental policies, even when they're combined, just aren't making any difference in terms of the numbers crossing, because rather than actually going down, we are at the second highest level for the number of small boat migrants crossing across the whole of this year. We're well over 40,000, pushing up towards 41,000.
Well, Mark White, thanks indeed for that live report there in Dover.
All right, well, let's move on to the doctors' strike, because doctors began the 5-day strike this morning as NHS bosses warned a flu wave will cause disruption.
Well, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, said the strike had been timed to inflict the most damage on the NHS and even put patients at risk.
And with the Prime Minister following suit, branding the industrial action as irresponsible.
Well, delighted to now be joined by the Deputy Co-Chair of the British Medical Association, Dr Tom Chilotis-James. Tom, thanks indeed for joining us this afternoon. A lot of people will be looking at their own pay packet today and thinking, hang on, why are these guys striking? I certainly haven't received a 29% pay rise, but you have.
So, Tom, on the point of pay, this is a dispute around multiple things: pay, jobs, and as a large contributing factor are also the working conditions the doctors face. Firstly, on pay, that 28%, 29% figure you cite is over 3 years. As your viewers will know, at a period of extreme inflation. In reality, it works out around 2% in real terms going up each year. So it's substantially less in real terms, particularly when we factor in the 35% pay erosion that we took from 2008. We are still
hang on, just on that point, 35% pay erosion. Which measure of inflation are you using to determine a 35% pay erosion?
So the 35% pay erosion is using RPI.
Right, and what does the government use when it measures the pay of every public sector employee? Which measure of inflation does the government use?
So when they're charging interest...
Pay, and real terms pay.
So there are different measures of inflation. You can measure it in different ways over different time periods.
But the
overriding message, regardless of what measure of inflation you use, is that there has been significant pay erosion over a period of time for doctors, the worst of all public sector workers, and we need to make progress to ensuring that doesn't happen again over the coming years, which is what our members are staring down the barrel of right now.
OK, Tom, Dr Tom, I just want to come back to that because you did avoid the question. What measure are you using to calculate your pay erosion? Because it is very important.
We're using RPI.
And what does the government use for jobs and things that are similar?
So the government uses, the official measure of inflation is CPI.
There we go. OK, and so under CPI, since 2008, it's not been a 35% erosion. I'm not going to say there's been no erosion. But if you use CPI, which is how the Bank of England, the government, how our employers, everyone measures their own real terms pay, it's been a 5% drop in pay. Now, suddenly those 2% increases seem like they're getting you basically to where you were.
So I don't recognise that figure of 5%. It depends on whether you include, if you're looking at basic pay, whether you're looking at other measures of pay, including all hours payments, for example. And I would say that CPI erosion is more like 15%, 10 to 15%, depending on where you want to, how you want to measure it. But the overriding message here is that we're in a position where we have 300 excess deaths a week due to excess waits in A&E, and we're turning away 13 doctors from every A&E post. That to me is a ridiculous situation, and I have colleagues who are facing unemployment with a young family, finishing their second year of foundation training, unable to get substantive employment. That is a huge part of this dispute, and part of the offer that was put to members recently and was resoundingly rejected, unfortunately, from the point of view of the health service, was emergency legislation to prioritise UK graduates to try and make a dent in this jobs crisis. But the problem is that there are no new jobs on offer, just repurposed jobs from other areas of the NHS. And we don't think that is good enough to address the concerns of the public, to address our members' concerns, and to make a real dent in these terrible waiting lists that we see at the moment.
But aren't you sort of making those terrible waiting lists worse by this action? It's not really helping anything. And also, I agree with you in the respect that we want more positions available for doctors. I think that's absolutely right, and the government should address it. But let's have a look at, the pay factor of this as well, because you were offered some things through West Streeting, but I think the reason why it was turned down initially was because the pay element hadn't been addressed. What about doctors' pensions? OK, so the state contribution towards the doctor's pension is over 23%. In a normal scenario, so a private scenario, a private employer will only contribute about 3% over time. So in actual fact, if you look at your overall pay package, it is, as if you remain a doctor, it increases quite quickly, and the pay package is quite substantial in retirement as well. That must surely, perhaps, would you consider some of that money towards your pension being taken and put towards your pay increase?
Mm-hmm. So we are open to discuss different measures with the Secretary of State. I'm not going to comment on specific things around pensions. They're very complex, and we end up seeing senior doctors who have to turn away work in order to not be at a financial detriment because of the way pension systems are set up.
Wouldn't that be a benefit if the benefit? Well, wouldn't that be a benefit instead if there was less hanging on the pension at the end and it was factored into your salary at the beginning? So you'd get it now, real time, and then a lower pension at the end.
We are very keen to get into a room with the Secretary of State and to identify a deal that works for our members. I hope that can be done soon after the end of this industrial action.
OK, and before we let you go, of course, lots of people are struggling with their pay at the moment. The cost of living is pretty tough. And people who work for the BMA seemingly are no different. I've been reading today that your clerical staff at the British Medical Association are going on strike against the British Medical Association. There's been no deal reached with GMB, the union that represents many of your clerical staff. Is there not a bit of an irony that the organisation that's promoting doctors' strikes is facing strikes itself from its own clerical staff now?
Trade union work and to lobby at various aspects of the government and to write on policy papers, and there's a whole host of things they do. And I'm disappointed and that it has come to strike action or industrial dispute rather, the staff. And I'm not involved in the setting of the pay or anything like that. And I hope that they can come to an agreement with the corporate side of the BMA so things can, go on as usual.
You do see the funny side there, though, don't you?
Yeah, it is a bit. Maybe not.
Having both groups in dispute at the same time is, it's not ideal that any group is in dispute, but at the same time, it's obviously not ideal.
All right, sorry, I've got to squeeze this in. What about the patients? Do you care about the patients? Because you're talking about money and everything. In the meantime, people's hip operations and so on and so forth, they're being postponed. What about the patients? Because you did sign that oath. It doesn't sound like you care.
Well, I can assure you I absolutely do, and I know many of my colleagues...
So why are you going on strike?
I think the real question here is why are we turning away 13 doctors from every A&E post when people are waiting 12 hours plus in A&E to be seen by a doctor? This perpetual crisis we see in the NHS is fixable, and every year these winter crises come along, and it seems like we can't learn from the one previously. I just don't think it's good enough. My members don't think it's good enough, and I think we can do something to fix it. And this is the only way it seems like we can get the Secretary of State to listen, because when we do not go on strike, he does not talk to us. Last time we had 2 weeks period of no strikes after the last round of industrial action, and he did not come to the table, and it is really unfortunate that has happened, and I sincerely hope it does not happen again after this round of industrial action.
OK, Tom Cheslis-James, the Deputy Co-Chair of the BMA, thanks indeed for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Let's hope that dispute can get resolved, not just the one between the BMA and the government, but also the one between the BMA's clerical staff and the BMA.
All right, this is Good Afternoon Britain. Lots more still to come on today's show.
Yes, backlash over Britain rejoining the Erasmus programme. Is Labour opening the doors to students coming and indeed undoing Brexit? But after the break...
Grangemouth saved £120 million bailout, keeps the plant open, but for how long?
Well, all of that and more to come. You're with GBNews, Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Britain's biggest chemical plant will remain open after owner Ineos secured a major government support package which will secure hundreds of jobs.
Yes, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, announced the deal this morning, which will see the government shovel £120 million of taxpayers' money to Grangemouth, supporting British jobs. But, of course, that money comes from our taxes.
Well, we can now go live to Grangemouth plant and speak to GB News' Scotland reporter, Tony Maguire. So, Tony Maguire, what more can you tell us?
Yeah, good afternoon. So, I mean, this has kind of come a bit of a surprise. It was only in April, of course, that Ineos closed the plant as its traditional use as an oil refinery with the loss of 400 jobs. But speaking to the Scottish Secretary this morning, it seems that talks began with Ineos in October, and now they were able to announce this £120 million from the UK government, combined with about £30 million from Ineos. And together that package is going to secure around 500 jobs over the next 5 years, but this isn't really for the traditional use of the oil refinery. This is all to do with ethylene production that's involved in the creation of plastics, which then helps make things like medical equipment and kind of advanced manufacturing. But of course, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, was in attendance today, and she spoke to the room and spoke very highly of the Labour MPs up here in Scotland that have helped bring this deal to fruition.
It's a significant investment by the UK government today, over £120 million to secure, of course, the 500 jobs here at the ethanol cracker at Grangemouth, but more than that, the jobs in the supply chain as well, and not just for this year, but for many years to come. The British people and people in Scotland voted for change last year, and we are determined to deliver that change. They elected local MP Brian Leishman, and they elected a Labour government with more Scottish Labour MPs, and that change means more good jobs paying decent wages, and that's exactly why we've stepped in.
Now, it's quite interesting, of course, that this is a lot of talk today around energy bills, and especially for industry, but will this really help the average person? Rachel Reeves very confident that from April, British households will pay £150 a year less on energy bills. But the real question for me today was the industrial town of Grangemouth that has been built up around this plant for 100 years. Are they really going to benefit from this, or are these jobs going to go out? For this town is greatly in decline, and they very much need a bit of a leg up at this stage.
Tony Maguire, thanks indeed for bringing us all of that in a very windy Grangemouth. Certainly you can hear what Mark White was talking about earlier, of those winds and that storm picking up right across the UK.
But interestingly, Grangemouth, they stopped the crude oil processing in April 2025. I suspect maybe it had something to do with net zero. And they're shifting to finished fuel imports, so importing petrol, diesel and jet fuel.
What I'm a little bit fed up about here is, I mean, good for those people whose jobs are going to be protected, absolutely. But this is just the government literally paying money for these jobs. What would be better is if we're energy cheaper in this country, the market could have provided these jobs. If we're going to have to, if the only way that we save factories and processing jobs is just by shoveling taxpayer money, I mean, this is what we did in the 1970s. It did not end well. I'm not sure this is so much of a good news story for the economy as a whole. I mean, we should want these companies to come here because this is the best place to do business, not because the government's going to shovel some taxpayer money their way.
Well, it's just going to cost us more anyway. Well, what are your thoughts? GBNews / your say. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. 2:32, the top story. Patients are being warned to expect major disruption as resident doctors in England have begun a 5-day strike. The walkout sparked a heated clash at Prime Minister's questions, with Kemi Badenoch accusing Sir Keir Starmer of another broken promise.
Of course he's not going to ban doctor strikes. He doesn't have the baubles.
Well, the Prime Minister hit back, blaming the Tories for leaving the NHS on its knees.
They left the NHS absolutely on its knees, waiting lists through the roof and confidence absolutely rock bottom.
Police say protesters chanting "Globalise the Intifada" will now face arrest following the terror attack in a Jewish gathering in Sydney. The Met and Greater Manchester Police say the context has changed, but they insist lawful protest is still protected. Sir Keir Starmer has warned Roman Abramovich that the clock is ticking to release billions from the sale of Chelsea Football Club to support Ukraine. The government says the money remains frozen despite the Russians' pledge. Ministers are now prepared to take him to court if it's not handed over. And the UK is set to rejoin the Erasmus scheme 5 years after leaving the EU programme. UK students will be able to study and train in Europe again from January 2027, with ministers expected to confirm the move today. Those are the headlines. Next, it is, in fact, Aaron coming up at 3.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A dull, damp day for many. Some heavy bursts of rain again in the west. We have a Met Office yellow warning in place for parts of South Wales and southwest England. It's actually up to the northwest where the culprit for today's rain is. Deep area of low pressure, lots of isobars across the UK, and these weather fronts gradually pushing in. The heaviest pulses of rain, South Wales and southwest England, where it has been very wet recently, so this extra rain may cause further travel disruption. Pulses of rain working back into the east of Northern Ireland and up into southern Scotland. There will be some brightness across northern Scotland. The rain fairly patchy over eastern England, so many here having a dry afternoon. afternoon. Temperature-wise, still a bit above average, mostly 9 to 11 degrees. But it will be quite a wet evening, particularly across the south and the west, but the rain extending up through the central belt of Scotland during the evening time as well. Parts of northeast Scotland still dry at this stage. Some showers coming into the northwest. Belfast should be turning drier as we go through the late afternoon into the evening. The rain pulling away from here, but lingering in Wales and southwest England. Again, heavier bursts here. The rain more patchy over the Midlands and eastern England. Parts of East Anglia and the southeast may well stay dry into the evening time, but slowly overnight that rain will be pushing its way further eastwards. Another Met Office yellow warning in place across other parts of southern England. So a lot of spray, a lot of surface water on the roads. Generally, though, becoming quite a bit drier as we go through the night. So most places will start Thursday dry with temperatures at 6 and 7 degrees Celsius. As we go through Thursday, well, there is another pulse of rain. Yes, it starts dry in many areas. There'll be some sunshine for parts of Scotland, but then further rain. Again, heavy rain coming in and again falling on ground that is very, very soggy. That is likely to cause further disruption. More Met Office warnings are in place. You can check out those Met Office weather warnings on the Met Office website and app.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the UK. We're truly humbled, and we couldn't have done it without you.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Road users are advised to exercise caution on the A9 Dornoch Bridge, where high winds are currently affecting driving conditions. In Gloucestershire, delays are expected on the A4 17 southbound between the junctions with the A46 and the A436 due to congestion, with traffic expected to normalise this afternoon. Additionally, in Surrey, a broken-down vehicle has closed one of 4 lanes on the M23 southbound between Junction 8 and Junction 9, with normal conditions anticipated shortly. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Cross Country are experiencing disruptions on various routes. Stay up to date at gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 37 minutes past 2.
Now, as we've been discussing, Britain is set to rejoin the EU's Erasmus student exchange scheme, described as a first step towards youth-free movement, but it could come at a cost, with the UK expected to pay around about £120 million a year to Brussels.
Well, this comes following hints from senior Labour figures about closer ties to the European Union. There's talk of a customs union even, which would rip up our trade deal with the United States or India. Claims Downing Street has, of course, played down. But could the Prime Minister be quietly attempting to unwind Brexit?
Well, joining us now is former Conservative member of the European Parliament, David Campbell Bannerman, and Chairman of the British Influence, Peter Wilding.
Well, David, why don't we start with you? There are lots of non-EU countries that are part of Erasmus. I mean, Turkey, Iceland. Would it be such a bad thing when we rejoin?
Well, the problem with Erasmus is that it benefits EU students far more than it does British students. The British students are more interested in going to America and the Anglosphere in many ways. And that was the experience of the numbers. You know, it was almost 3 times as many EU students and Brits. And that is subsidized by the British taxpayer because they don't pay international fees anymore to our universities. So I think it's actually unfair on other international students coming to Britain.
But with the Erasmus scheme, so we have the Turing scheme, and that's kind of replacing it. The Erasmus scheme does have a limit, though, this new one, of 100,000 students. So with that in mind, would that not be more beneficial rather than just an open envelope to people from the EU? I'll just go back to you, David, with that.
Well, I mean, the Turing scheme, I think this is very symbolic because the Turing scheme is international. You know, it's looking at the world, looking out from Britain to the world, whereas Erasmus is looking inwards to the EU. And though it is, you know, it's better than some of the Jean Monnet schemes, for example, which are all about building the federal superstate. It's more neutral, but it is about saying how wonderful the EU is. So there's a propaganda element to it as well. So why don't we just, grow up and be an independent sovereign nation and embrace the Turing scheme, which I think has been suspended. The website seems to be down at the moment. So we're waiting on a government statement on whether that continues.
Gosh, well, let's throw some of this to Peter Wilding. I mean, Peter, do you get the sense that this government is getting bolder and bolder in its steps towards more European integration, for want of a better word?
Well, first of all, the word that I would never describe this government as is bold. The second thing is, I would like to wish you and my dear friend David Campbell-Bannerman a Merry Christmas. I didn't think we were going to be on, so this is fantastic. Look, the government, baby steps are not even the issue here. The government is not bold. The government is not seeking to rejoin any EU institution, but it is certainly seeking to rejoin programs which the participants in those programs of old, universities, students, want to participate in. And universities benefited from the Erasmus scheme because of the mutuality of the exchange. The British universities have lost a considerable number of European researchers for obvious reasons, and that obviously diminishes their research capacity, and they're very concerned about that. The second
can
point,
you just come back to what David Campbell-Bannerman said, which was what was it, 3 to 1? More Europeans came to Britain than Brits went to Europe under this scheme.
that is true, and the UK government plainly, through what you said earlier on, are seeking to limit that, what would otherwise be called a discrepancy. But I would say on the UNESCO Outward Bound Mobility of Students Index, and I compare this to the Irish students, the number of British students going abroad has declined by 20% since Brexit, whereas comparatively on Ireland, it's gone up by 20%. And there's a reason for that, obviously, and that is because between 18,000 and 100,000 students that could have taken advantage of Erasmus are no longer doing so. I would say to David, Turing scheme continues. So this is a best of both worlds provision for British students and researchers from the 2027 academic year onwards. And I can only think that's a good thing because education, travel, broadening the mind, broadening one's cultural and educational experiences has just got to be a good thing. And I really was sad when we left Erasmus, principally because we left the European Union, but we didn't have to leave everything. We didn't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And because universities, researchers and students were sad that the Erasmus scheme was abolished, it's only natural in a democracy that you respond to those who have lobbied for it to be reintroduced. There is no red under the bed here. As you said, many other countries are not in the European Union, are part of the Erasmus scheme. I don't hear people in Istanbul universities crying in their coffees about EU propaganda. So I think it's a best of both worlds. It's a good thing. It's sensible.
Do you think it's sensible? Just it sounds like it's slightly one-sided. But listen, thank you very much, David Campbell-Bannerman, and also Peter Wilding. Thank you very much.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there is plenty more to come on today's show. You won't want to miss this. We'll be live in Westminster as protests grow over the NHS puberty blocker trial.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast of some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello, are you heading away for some sunshine? Well, it's quite wet actually across parts of Spain, Italy and France, as well as the Canary Islands. We've got some very unsettled weather, a risk of showers for Tenerife through Thursday and a risk of outbreaks of heavy rain and thunderstorms spread across Spain, Italy and France through Thursday. It does look a little bit drier to end the week, and across eastern areas of the Mediterranean, there's plenty of dry weather to come through Friday and into the weekend. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. 48 minutes after 2 o'clock. Now, dozens of immigrants have been arrested in one of the biggest ever raids of illegal working in the UK.
Well, our own national reporter Will Godley was given exclusive access to the raid in Swindon. He sent this report.
Hello. Yeah, there's one in there.
Behind this door, a suspected illegal worker. One of 30 immigration officers believed to be working here, at this huge construction site near Swindon.
All right, come on.
It's been the subject of many months of investigations, and now more than 100 officers from Wiltshire Police and the Home Office are embarking on the biggest immigration raid ever taken place in the west of England. Well, police officers and immigration officers have cleared the site, gathered the workers here in this warehouse where immigration officers are now carrying out the checks they need to do in order to work out who has a right to work and who doesn't. And it doesn't take long before officers make their first arrest.
You came in a lorry, did you?
A man from India who came to the UK in the back of a lorry more than 20 years ago and still doesn't have the right to work.
So I can see you've got an appeal against your application which was refused, okay? And that's what you've shown me here, but that doesn't give you the right to work in the UK. And that's why you've been arrested today, okay?
While officers continue their questioning here, on the other side of the building site, immigration officials have found yet further evidence of suspected illegal working.
Interpreter, can you just explain to the male that I'm now going to be placing him under immigration arrest? This is because he's an overstay in the UK. Okay? This isn't an arrest.
These two men came to the UK legally from India, but have since overstayed their visas. They've now been placed under arrest by immigration officials.
It looks like we've made over 20 arrests, 24, 25 arrests. We've still got some that we need to speak to. So it's well over 20 arrests so far.
And what's going to happen to these people who have been arrested today? What's the next steps for them?
So I think at the moment we've got 3 who've been arrested for what we call breach of bail. So they're not removable at the moment. So they'll be just escorted off site and they'll have to continue reporting while we process their claim or their appeal. The others we will be looking to detain and remove.
In the last year, immigration officers arrested more than 8,000 illegal workers. The government say it's the largest crackdown since records began.
This is really significant, and it's so important that we continue this pace, and we will. These operations will be 7 days a week, 365 days a year, to ensure that British workers on those construction sites aren't being undercut. That's why this is our operational activity is the highest it's been in British history, with a 63% rise in these visits and arrests.
Today's operation resulted in 29 arrests of suspected illegal workers from both India and Albania. The Home Office will now work to remove them from Britain. Will Godley, GB News, Swindon.
This is really interesting stuff. Not just the government is doing immigration raids, because of course that's happened since time immemorial. The fact that they're filming them and promoting them, and we've seen films from the government before of people getting onto deportation flights. They really want the public to know what they're doing to try and stop this.
Yeah, they do, but I think they've got... It's the thing is, the government before them, so the Conservative government, allowed all of these people to come in initially under the guise of legal migration, which is fine. But they've obviously got the information of the people who are still here working illegally, because is there no record of people when they leave?
There's no record when people...
See, that's what they need to do. They need to get a record of people coming in and when they leave, especially if they come in here legally. And that's, I think, the fly in the ointment. Why are they not doing that?
A lot of the illegal workers will be people who come in on a tourist visa, on a student visa, and then just overstay that visa and then get work. Although some of these people might have come across on a small boat as well. I mean, but small boat migrants, I think, are around 40% of illegal migrants. And we forget about the other means that people get here. People still do sometimes cling onto the underside of a lorry. People do...
That's so old hat, though. I mean, put the dinghies quicker. Sorry, I mean, they say it's a dangerous crossing. I think you're more likely to get killed driving a car than going in one of those dinghies.
But perhaps the thing that we talk about least is the number of people who come here pretending they're students
when they're
and
not.
Then immediately stop their course. They're in the country, they've faked the amount of money they have to get in, and
liars.
They're working.
Well, there are some good people as well. Right, thank you so much for watching Good Afternoon Britain. I'm back on the weekend 3 till 6.
But don't go anywhere. Christopher Hope, yes, the one and only Chopper. He'll be here next, filling in for the one and only Martin Daubney.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Afternoon, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. More wet weather to come through the rest of today, and then another pulse of rain tomorrow. That rain's going to be heavy in places, and we have Met Office warnings that have been issued too for South Wales and South West England through this evening. Further heavy pulses of rain. It's been so wet here that is likely to cause further issues, chance of flooding. But it does start to clear, at least here, as we head through the night, and then it turns up across East Anglia and the south east. A few showers in western Scotland, some wet weather for a time elsewhere, but most places actually becoming quite dry through the night as temperatures drop to 6 or 7 Celsius, 9 or 10 across the south. On to tomorrow. I said there's more rain to come, but actually many places will start tomorrow dry. There'll be some sunshine across parts of southern Scotland. Probably still fairly grey across the south at this stage, but largely dry for the morning rush hour. Still a lot of spray and surface water from the overnight rain, though. Largely dry and fine for Northern Ireland. 1 or 2 showers coming into the northwest and some showers over the Highlands. the Western Isles and the Northern Isles into the morning too, but should be quite a bit of sunshine across the northeast. A coolish start here, but again, nothing really particularly cold for this time of year. And then here comes the rain setting in across southern England and South Wales, where again, heavy rain here, and it may last for much of the morning, even into the afternoon. Could again cause some further problems. That rain then marches northwards, so it's a very wet end to the day, with the main exception being the far north of Scotland, but generally turning wet and increasingly windy, very gusty conditions, especially on the south coast of England and Wales through the day. That rain kind of spirals its way away as we head through Thursday evening, and Friday does look as if it could offer some respite. A bright and blustery day. There'll still be showers in western Scotland, a few for Northern Ireland, but for most of England and Wales, Friday will offer some fine and dry weather. But Met Office warnings are in place for the rain tonight and tomorrow. Check those out on the Met Office website.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the big one. Your chance to win a whopping £85,000 in tax-free cash. The largest cash prize we've given away to date. That's like over £7,000 a month extra in your bank account each month for 12 whole months. That's a year of yes. Yes to holidays, yes to treats, yes to shopping trips, yes to home improvements. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk?